Number 79, we're going to take these two individual linear functions, g, this one, h, and this one, and we're going to create a new function. We're not going to add them together, subtract them, or multiply them, but rather we're going to compose them. This is going to be called composition of functions. So this operation is called composition of functions, and sometimes we just read that as circle. So we might read this as h circle, actually I'm going to read it as h circle g. So what h circle g, h of g, says to do, it says to start with your input of 3. So I'll write that. I'll start with my 3, and I'm going to use it as an input. And I input it, first of all, to, just read it backwards like this, input it into G. So I'm going to put the 3 into G. Now, keep in mind that that collection of symbols is an output. Now, we'll have to work a little bit to get it. It's not too hard. I mean, you're going to put 3 into G. What do? You just get 2 times 3 is 6, and 7 more is 13. All right, so really that's a 13. But right now, let's just go with this. You start with a 3, put it into G. So that's an output. That's a number. Now take that output and put it into H. So I'll do it with a square bracket so I don't get too many parentheses. I'll put that into H. And then if I read this, it reads what? H of G of 3. H of G. So you might read it like this. H, kind of an O. It's a circle, but I'll read it as an O for of. H of G. H of G of 3. Now, what do you do with the 3? Well, you process the 3 with the G rule. So take the 3, put it into G. So locate G way up here. Replace all the x's with 3. So it's good. Now it's going to look like this. I'll bring everything straight down. H of 2 times 3 plus 7. Now what does that give us? H of 6 and 7 is 13. Now what do you do with the 13? Well, now you go to H, right? You're going to process it with H. You go to H. Here's H. You can see the x is being replaced with 13, so replace that x with the 13. So we'll get 13 minus 8. What do we get? We get 5. All right, so now what we're going to conclude is this, that H of G of 3 is 5. So get a picture of what's happening is this. I'll draw some circles here so we can get a feel for what's happening. Right, I'm going to start here with 3. Right, that'll be my input. So I start with 3. That's my input. Then I'm going to process this 3 with, with G, right? I'm going to process it with G. So maybe I'm down here. Take 3, process it with G. So I'll process it with G, which is 2x plus 7. So if I put the 3 into the 2x plus 7, I ended up with a 13. Now process it again. But now I take that 13 that was an output, use it as an input, and put it into H. So I'm going to process this 13 with H, which is just x minus 8. And that gave me that 5. So I started here with 3. I processed it with G. Then I processed it again with H, getting 5. So I started with 3, intermediate value of 13. That took me over to a 5. Number 81, we're given f is a quadratic, g is a linear, and what I want to do is I want to compose these two functions together. One function composed of another function. So g of f of 6. All right, so here's what this means. This means g of f of 6. So if you just read it and write what you read, you've got it. G of f of 6. G of f of 6. Now let's start here. You start with a 6. You input a 6. You process it with f. So go up to f, locate f, right here. That x has been replaced with 6. So replace all the x's. Put a 6 for this one here. So bring it straight down. We'll get g of, now what do you get? You get 6 squared plus 3. So you get g of 36 plus 3. You get g of 39. But now what do you do with the 39? Well, the 39, you're going to process that with g. So locate g, It's way up here. You're replacing the x with 39, so replace that x with a 39. So this is going to be 3 times 39 plus 5. So what do I get here? I get 117 plus 5, so I get 122. So what I'm going to say here is that g of f of 6 takes me to 122. And the picture of what's going on here, I'll draw some third circles kind of tight here, but we can get it in. You start here with a 6. What do? You process it, first of all, with what? You start with a 6, you process it with f, right? 6, process it with f, g of f of 6. So I take the 6, process it with f. That took us to, what did that take us to? 39. So my first input is 6. That processes to a 39, the output, but now I use the 39 as an input into the g function. That took us over to 122.